You see people coming in? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're live. We're gonna start. Aisha, you can um do your present. You want to do your screen now or after I do the introduction?
I could do like play it from the beginning now.
Yeah, just the front. Or you can do it after. It's okay.
I'll do it after because I can't see you
Okay.
guys.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of It Takes a Village, brought to you by the Guam Homeless Coalition. This informational webinar series aims to highlight the different members who are part of the Guam Homeless Coalition and all the great work that they do for our island community. Today, we have with us the team from Guam Legal Services Corporation Disability Law Center. GLSC DLC is a private nonprofit corporation. In 1999, they became the Designated Protection and Advocacy Office for Guam. This organization is authorized under applicable federal and local laws to protect and promote the human, civil, and legal rights of individuals with mental illness, developmental disabilities, and other disabilities through legal-based advocacy. In addition, Guam Legal Service, DLC assists other vulnerable populations, including survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, and other crimes with obtaining protective and restraining orders. So the team is going to start their presentation right after this, but if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the Q&A section on the webinar, or if you're watching live on YouTube, you can put it in the comment section there, and we can address it after their presentation. So thank you again, Aisha, and the team. You can go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Good morning, everyone. Let me just play from the beginning. Okay. So my name is Aisha Oshiro, and I'm one of the PNA advocates, and I'm actually here with Miss.
Oh, Shayla, another advocate from Guam Legal.
Yes. And then we're also here with Miss Carol. Carol, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, this is Carol. I'm the Protection and Advocacy Program Coordinator with Guam Legal Services as well.
Thank you. So what we'll cover today is basically just an overview of our programs and services, eligibility and how to apply for our services, our contact information, and Q&A afterwards. So Guam Legal Services, we're a private nonprofit organization. We were established in 1979 and we began operations in 1981. We were redesignated as the PNA, or the Protection and Advocacy System, in 1999. We're not a part of the government of Guam or the federal government. We have 9 federally funded programs, and we also receive court appointments. I'll go over the programs individually throughout the presentation. And there's PNAs all throughout the nation. Guam Legal Services, we're governed by a board of directors. The board includes individuals with disabilities, professionals, and community members. Our staff include attorneys. We have 3 attorneys here in the office, our advocates, and our support staff. We also have advisory council members, which I'll also be going over throughout the presentation. They're basically made up of individuals with disabilities, the parents of individuals with disabilities, professionals, and community members who may be knowledgeable about individuals with disabilities in the community. Our mission statement. Our mission statement is to promote, educate, and advocate for equal rights and access to justice for our underserved communities. The populations we serve are individuals with disabilities, victims of violence, and court-appointed cases where our attorneys serve as the guardian ad litem. So these are some of the federal grants that fund our programs. So the U.S. Department of Justice, as you could see, it funds our VOCA program. And then the U.S. Department of Education funds our PAIR program. And then the Department of Health and Human Services, it basically funds our PAMI, PAD, PAVA, and PAT programs, and PATB. And then the Social Security Administration funds our PABS and PABS 2 programs. I'll go over what the acronyms mean in a later slide. So now I'll be turning it over to our violence advocate, Ms. Shayla.
Hi, good morning. Okay, so the program that I work under, we refer to it as our violence program. For our violence program, we get funding from the VOCA grant. VOCA stands for Victims of Crime Act. It comes from the Office for Victims of Crime, which is a part of the U.S. Department of Justice, and is administered to us by the AG's office. So this funding is meant for organizations that provide direct services to victims of crime. The main service that Guam Legal Services provides for victims of crime is legal representation to obtain a civil protective or restraining order. Okay, so what is a protective or restraining order? Simply put, it's a court order issued by a judge that is meant to protect the victim from being physically or sexually abused, threatened, stalked, or harassed. In a standard protective or restraining order, the defendant, the one who committed the crime, will not be allowed to contact the victim in any way, directly or indirectly. They cannot call, message, email, or use somebody else to contact the victim. They also have to stay 500 feet away from the victim. So this means that they cannot go to their residence, workplace, school, and so on. If they were to see the victim in a public place, they cannot approach them, and they should be the ones to leave. A protective order can last up to 5 years. It is possible to extend the order. The victim just needs to let us know before the order expires. It's also possible for the victim to drop the protective order if they feel like they no longer need the protection. In general, the main difference between a protective and restraining order. So protective orders are for parties who have had intimate relations or who are family members or they live in the same household. And then restraining orders are for parties with no intimate or familial relations. What happens if a defendant violates a protective order? So the victim has the option of reporting it to the police, depending on the severity of the violation. For example, if the defendant comes to the victim's residence, the police are supposed to respond right away and either arrest or remove them. From that point on, a criminal case may be opened, which can result in the defendant serving time. The victim can also come back to us and let us know about the violations. So if they choose to do so, we would open another case for them. Basically, we would go back to court, let the judge know about the violations, and then ask for some kind of punishment. The punishment can be the defendant having to pay a fine, or serving jail time, or both, but ultimately it's up to the judge to decide the punishment. And then I just wanted to talk about the process for applying for a protective or restraining order. So applicants can either call our office or walk in. They will first have to answer a few pre-screening questions and pass a conflict check. We do a conflict check to make sure that we haven't represented the opposing party before, or to make sure that the applicant is not an opposing party in another case we had. So if the applicant passes pre-screening and the conflict check, an advocate, usually it'll be me, will contact them to do an intake interview. So as the advocate, my job is to get all the necessary information and find out why they want the protective order. After the interview, I review the case with the attorney and find out whether or not the applicant qualifies for a protective order. If they do qualify, the next step is for us to prepare the paperwork and have them come in and meet with the the attorney to review and sign the paperwork. That same day, we will file the paperwork to court. A judge will be assigned to the case, and the court marshals will go out and serve the defendant the paperwork. The judge will schedule a court hearing within 10 days. At that hearing, the defendant will have options. So one, the easiest option for them would be to simply agree to the protective order without admitting to any of the allegations. If they want to go against the protective order, they can either hire their own attorney or represent themselves, and they can ask for something called an evidentiary hearing. So in an evidentiary hearing, both sides will have to give testimony and provide whatever evidence they have, and it'll be up to the judge to determine whether or not to grant the protective order. So it sounds like a lot, but throughout the entire process, the advocate is there to guide the victim and make everything less overwhelming. So yeah, if they have any questions or concerns, I'll do my best to explain or get the answers from the attorney. Okay, so as long as you are a victim of a crime, you can apply for this service. The cases we usually take are mostly domestic or family violence, sexual assault, and stalking, but it's not limited to just those crimes. Other crimes can be harassment, criminal trespassing, terrorizing, and so on. It's a case-by-case kind of thing. There are no age or income requirements, and if the victim is a minor, it will have to be the parent or legal guardian applying on their behalf. Okay, and then lastly, some additional services we do for victims would be safety planning. So for that, we talk about ways they can better protect themselves, making referrals if they need help being connected to other service providers. For example, like if they need emergency shelter, we'll connect them to the Vero shelter, or if they need help following up with their criminal case, we can refer them to the victim advocates at the AG's office. Also, we attend court hearings with the victim and so on. It all depends on the needs of the victim. Okay, so that's it from me.
Thank you, Shayla. So that was our violence program. So I'll go over our 7 programs for the PNA side. So PAMI stands for Protection and Advocacy for Individuals with Mental Illness. PAD stands for the Protection Advocacy for Individuals with Developmental Disabilities. PAIR is for Individual Rights. The PAT program is for Assistive Technology. PAVA is for Voter Access. PAB is for Traumatic Brain Injury, and PABS. So we have 2, we have PABS and then PABS 2. And it's basically the protection advocacy for beneficiaries of Social Security and strengthening protections for Social Security beneficiaries. I'll go over in a later slide on how you'll be eligible for each program. So as a PNA, we're actually mandated under applicable federal and local laws to promote and protect the civil, legal, and human rights of individuals with disabilities through legal-based advocacy. And there's a PNA program in every state and territory. Some of the laws and oversight. One is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, the Rehab Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, Amendments Act, ADA-AA, and then the Patient Rights under Guam law, Involuntary Hospitalization Procedures, the Fair Housing Act, Voting Rights, and the Social Security Administration. So how you would be eligible for our PNA services. First, you would have to have a disability, and you would have to have a certification of your disability. The definition we go by is part of the ADA. So the ADA defines a disability as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, a record of such impairment, or is regarded as having such an impairment. And In addition, your issue or your problem that needs to be addressed must be directly related to your disability. Some of the remedies that we provide would be information and referrals. So sometimes we're not able to help everyone that walks in the door for several reasons, but we should be able to provide you with some information or refer you to other agencies or programs that would be more appropriate to help you with your issue. We do investigations of abuse and neglect. So for investigations of abuse and neglect, the applicant can come in themselves, or we're also able to like see the news, and if we see headlines saying, for example, somebody abused or assaulted someone with an individual with a disability, maybe at a school where there's been instances of staff maybe abusing students with disabilities, we would also be able to go in and investigate that, or even at Guam Behavioral. We do outreach to underserved communities. We participate in a lot of the outreach activities with the Guam Homeless Coalition and other agencies. Yeah, I'll just stick with agencies. We provide legal counsel and advice. So even if we're not able to help the applicant, sometimes our attorneys, they actually do want to meet and provide some advice to the applicant, even though we're not able to help them. So maybe they'll leave with an idea of how to help themselves or where to go for help. Negotiation and mediation. So if someone comes in with an issue, of course we want to start by mediating it with whoever it is that they're complaining against. So that's the first step, basically. And then administrative proceedings, individual litigation, we do monitoring and systemic litigation advocacy and training, including self-advocacy skills. The types of cases we take are abuse and neglect, special education, legal guardianships of adults, and we do minors, legal guardianships of minors, employment discrimination, powers of attorneys, disability discrimination, transportation, housing, program access, public benefits, healthcare, and Social Security disability income denial. So for all these types of cases, it has to be related to your disability, like for transportation, housing, program access, public benefits, things like that. And then for the Social Security disability income denial, it's usually when people are applying for SSDI and they get denied at least 3 times, and then they'll come here and they'll speak with our attorney to see if we'll be able to represent them in their hearing. Some factors in our case selection, of course, we would go by our program priorities. Every year we hold our public input session so that the community is able to comment on our program priorities, and we're able to see like what needs to be done, what our office needs to do. The degree to which the problem affects the person's life, health, or safety, the level of resources available to Guam Legal to provide adequate representation, potential for systemic change, the existence of other programs available. So we don't want to duplicate services, and then the existence of a conflict of interest. So when you apply, I'll just go over the procedure. So first would be either an applicant walks in or they call over the phone, and then they'll start the application process, or we can also receive referrals from like hospitals, clinics, or other agencies. And then from there, we'll pre-screen for eligibility, and then we'll conflict check to see if anything pops up or if there's any issues like that. And if you pass conflict check, then an advocate will be assigned and will contact you for further information. So for POs and ROs, protective orders and restraining orders, you may be able to be seen on the same day for intake. It depends on the client's or the applicant's schedule, of course, and then the severity of the case, right, of the information. After that, If not being seen on the same day for a PO and RO, for the P&A side, we'll schedule an intake to interview the applicant and get additional information. We can do intakes in person, over the phone, video call, or even home visit if you're bedbound or you can't leave your home, or you're in the hospital, or you're in Guam Behavioral, things like that. And then during the intake, we'll collect information and any documents needed. After we get all the information and all the documents are submitted, we'll bring it to our case review where we sit down with the attorneys and we'll go over the information that was provided to us by the client or the applicant. So once the information is provided to the attorney, they'll basically accept or deny the application based on the issue and our program priorities. And if accepted, then an attorney is assigned to your case. And then afterwards, the advocate should inform you that if your case was accepted, and if it wasn't accepted, we would be able to give you an explanation why. And if you were accepted, then we'll start getting everything ready to schedule your meeting with the attorney. So for Special Education Advocacy, or IDEA, the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, we provide advocacy for the least restrictive environment, advocacy to receive eligible services, advocacy at IEP meetings or individualized education program meetings, where attorneys or advocates would join the meeting with you and advocate for our client, basically. We do mediation. So if an applicant comes in with an issue with, say, their child at school, we'll contact the school and we'll try to mediate the situation. And if not, then we'll go into due process. So monitoring group homes and facilities. So myself and the other P&A advocates, we go to all the group homes on the island, including the Guam Behavioral group homes, the Caradots, and the Gumamami group homes. And we basically monitor to make sure that the services being provided and the building itself, the structure itself is appropriate and safe for the consumers or the clients living in the group homes. And then we ensure access to agencies, organizations, and establishments where accessibility is legally required. So here's a short video of the P&A network and why we were created.
All people deserve basic human rights. That's why Congress created a system of protection and advocacy agencies, also known as P&As, to protect and advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. Because in the past, they have not been treated equally. In most of the 20th century, the phrase "out of sight, out of mind" was more than just a popular saying. It was the means for dealing with an unwanted segment of the population. People with disabilities were either segregated from society, locked away in institutions, or remained isolated at home with absolutely no services, not even an education. They were abused, neglected, and forgotten. Then, in 1973, ABC News cameras exposed the filthy living conditions and poor treatment inside Staten Island's Willowbrook School, which housed people with developmental and intellectual disabilities. It shocked the nation.
The doctor had warned me that it would be bad. It was horrible.
Finally, in 1975, Congress acted. They mandated that every U.S. state and territory have an official protection and advocacy agency. P&As go by many names, but their mission is the same: to protect and advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. Together, the P&As form the National Disability Rights Network, taking on issues affecting people with all kinds of disabilities. No other organizations have the sweeping access authority that P&As have. They go anywhere services for people with disabilities are provided, from schools to hospitals to prisons and jails, to monitor conditions and listen to concerns. They make sure people with disabilities are treated equally, with dignity and respect, and never have to face the same kind of mistreatment they saw at Willowbrook. P&As ask the public for input on which issues to take on in their communities. P&As can fight against abuse and neglect in residential services, to end exploitation at work, for fair treatment in the criminal justice system, for equal access to public education and voting, for accessible communities and services and assistive technologies, and countless other issues. That's the Protection and Advocacy System. Click here to find the P&A for your state or territory. And subscribe for more videos from the PNA Network at Rooted in Rights.
So your PNA system is Guam Legal Services. So for PAMI, you'll be eligible for a PAMI program if you are an individual with mental illness or emotional impairment. That goes for adults and for children. For a PAD program, it's any individual who was diagnosed prior to the age of 22 and whose disability is likely to continue indefinitely. So it could be a disability that you were born with or a disability you acquired before you turned 22. For our PAMI program, we have a PAMI Advisory Council. So this council is made up of individuals with mental illness, their family members, like their parents, and professionals. So the PAMI Advisory Council is charged with providing our office with information about issues related to individuals with mental illness. They provide independent advice and recommendations to the PNA system. So since most of our members are individuals with mental illness and they are consumers of Guam behavioral, they're out in the community and they're able to let us know like what services or what advice they can give us from their conversations with other individuals with mental illness in the community and what needs to be done to better service them. Our council works jointly with our governing board, which is our board members. Our chairperson actually is a member of our board, so they do have representation there, and he's able to basically just provide information about what goes on in our council. And then they also submit a section of the PNA's systems annual report. So for our program performance reports that are due at the end of the year, there's a section for our council to basically let our grantors know, the work that we've been doing. So for PAIR, you're eligible for PAIR if you acquired a disability as an adult, and you may not be eligible for services under our PAMI or PAD programs. So maybe it's like a catch-all. So if you don't have a mental illness and you don't have a disability that we were born with or you acquired before you're 22, you probably fall under our PAIR program. So for PAIR, we can conduct home visits when you're unable to come to our office or you're residing in a facility or a group home. So for intakes, if you're bedbound or maybe you don't have like a phone personally or you run on minutes, things like that, then we're able to go to your home and conduct the intake and then bring all the information back. And then we can also bring the attorney to your home to provide the services. We also do site visits when emergency circumstances exist. Say you're admitted into GMH, GRMC, SNU, we'll be able to go as long as you tell security that Guam Legal is coming, please let them in. For our PABS program, so it's a Social Security Representative Payee program. So their purpose is to strengthen protections for Social Security beneficiaries who receive Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI. So what is the Rep Payee Review Program? So since August 2018, the PNA Network received funding to conduct interviews on Rep Payee performance on behalf of the Social Security Administration. The program provides oversight to Rep Payees and their services to beneficiaries, as well as giving them support to better understand the role and responsibilities. So basically, if you receive SSDI, if you aren't able to receive your money yourself, you would have a representative payee. Our office basically makes sure that your rep payee is handling your funds, handling your money, and basically taking care of everything that needs to be done for the beneficiary of SSDI. So who is affected by the program? This program helps both beneficiaries and rep payees. The rep payees are individuals or organizations who manage Social Security benefits on behalf of the beneficiary, and Social Security assesses a beneficiary's need for a rep payee on a case-by-case basis. SSA automatically assigns a rep payee to most child beneficiaries and to individuals who are found legally incompetent by a court. which is basically what I just went over. So our office will provide the rep payee with information on how to handle the funds appropriately, and things like that. And then also make sure that all the SSDI payments are being spent or given to the beneficiary appropriately. And then the P&A initiated reviews. So our office reviews cases that are identified by P&As that are suspected of potential misuse of the funds. So our PABS program. So the goal of the PABS program is to make services available to beneficiaries of Social Security who want to work or return to work. PABS provides the following services: information and advice about obtaining vocational rehabilitation and employment services, and advocacy or other services that a beneficiary may need to secure, regain gainful employment. So if you receive SSDI or Social Security and you want to go back to work, we'll be able to help you with that. PAP-B, which is for traumatic brain injury. It's to ensure that individuals with traumatic brain injury and their families have access to information, referrals and advice, advocacy, and legal representation. Our PAP program is for assistive technology, is to increase awareness of and access to assistive technology devices and services that may help with education, employment, daily activities, and inclusion of people with disabilities in their community. So for example, for children with disabilities in schools, and they need assistive technology to function better, we will be able to help with that. Our PAVA program, which is it's our voting access program. It's to ensure full participation in all aspects of the voting process for people with disabilities, to include registering to vote, casting ballots, and accessing polling places. So in addition, our advocates actually do provide training to all the polling staff before the elections. During election season, we just provide training on how to make the polling sites more accessible for people with disabilities, like the ramps, the hallways, to make sure like if someone in a wheelchair were able to, access these services, or the doors, the doorknobs, things like that. And we provide solutions or
low-tech devices.
Low-tech options, because I know that a lot of the polling places are in schools, and our schools are very old. So we'll provide some low-tech options for the staff to make, like the doorknobs, to make maybe some ramps if they're already not provided by the schools. So that's what we do. We help train the polling staff. So come election day, they're able to assess the general population and the population of individuals with disabilities.
Right. And then just to share, just to add on, Aisha, in this picture, you see our staff with the staff of Guam election. And we provide these low-tech assistive technology toolkits. And in the toolkits, you'll find a tennis ball with the pen that goes right through it. And that's for folks that may have problems with their, grasping a pen.
Dexterity issues.
Yeah. And magnifying sheets, we all sometimes we can forget our eyeglasses, or we need, the font is too small. So that could be helpful. We also have a communication board, a signature guide, and then some other things inside these kits that we provide. So if you go out and vote, you may see our kits as well as our posters that identify and describe each device. And like Aisha said, we do go out and every election we train over 400 precinct officials for both the primary and the general elections, which we last did in last year, 2022. So we'll do it again next year when there's another election for the senators.
Yes, and then on election day for the primary election, we go out when everyone's voting to see what issues are still there, so that come general election, hopefully they would be resolved.
Right. And generally we work with the election commission, and if we see any barriers on the spot, we can address it. Again, like Aisha said, we're out on election days surveying and assessing polling sites, because they look different from, if we do pre-inspections and then inspections on the day of, and including when they had the North Central and Southern early voting, we go out and assess that. And when they had the elections last year, the early voting held at the Westin, so the advocates also go out and ensure that there are no barriers for folks with disabilities. And this starts from the parking lot all the way to the voting booth. And then we have had some schools where there were barriers, where there's steps leading up to the classroom, to the polling, to the voting room. And so we've addressed that, with the election commission, and they've corrected that, for the following election. So, if we also can receive any complaints, if there are people that complain about their experience, those are things that we also entertain as well.
Thank you. So this is just a chart of the individuals we served in 2023, so the most recent year. For our VOCA program, we served 113 individuals. For our P&A side, we served 120, and we also received court appointment cases. So these numbers are cases that we've closed in 2023. They don't include information and referrals, and they don't include cases that were opened. So contact us. We're open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, except on the Guam holidays. We're located here in Hagåtña. We're across the Hulale Center on the cliffside, or the old Nanbo's building, as I've been told. And our number is 477-9811. You can also, if you can't call us or you can't walk in, we accept walk-ins. Our email is provided. And then these are our emails down here for Carol, myself, and Shayla.
Yes, and we also have our website.
Yes,
so,
we do.
yeah, you're welcome to reach out to us through our website. And just to add a couple things, I'm not sure if we said this, but we don't charge for our services. It's at no cost to the client. We get paid through our federal grants. There may be incidental expenses. Let's say if you need to mail documents off island, you may be responsible for mailing those. Filing fees, generally we get those waived by the court. But there may be, small incidental expenses that, like recording fees, maybe if you need to get your documents recorded, you may have to be responsible for paying for that. And then cases that we do not take cases where the client is looking to sue for monetary compensation. So if a client with a disability wants to sue a business or an organization or a doctor to gain money, we do not provide representation. In those cases, we would refer you to a private personal injury attorney, possibly. And then we also do not take cases where there's a criminal matter. So we only do civil cases in both our violence program as well as our protection and advocacy programs. So if you have a criminal matter or you want us to represent you in a criminal case, we are not able to represent you in those types of cases. And then Aisha also talked about abuse and neglect cases. So that's our top priority with the work that we do in protection and advocacy. However, that's dealing with facilities, group homes, and institutions. So if it's an issue or a abuse and neglect situation at home, we would refer you or make a referral to Adult Protective Services or Child Protective Services. But if it's a situation where it happened at a group home or a facility or an institution like Guam Behavioral, at a hospital, at a group schools, yes, thanks, Yisha, and at schools. So any institution that provides services and cares for individuals with disabilities, those are where we investigate abuse and neglect. Okay. I think that's it. That's all I wanted to add on. Any other questions for any of us? Any questions, comments?
I don't see anything yet in our Q&A and our chat on the live. There's no questions right now. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you guys again, Carol, Aisha, and Shayla. That was a really good presentation. And once we end the webinar, it will be automatically saved to the Guam Homeless Coalition's YouTube page. So if you ever want to refer clients there to review the presentation, and anybody can take a look at it if they missed today's session. I still don't see anything, guys, but thank you again.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yes, Happy New Year. Everybody be safe out there. And we'll see you for the next session. We'll announce it if anybody else signs up in the coming month. But thank you again. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Okay, we're good?
We leave.
Right.
Thank
Well,
you, Jack.